what I want to talk about, honestly, is the nature of Gazan society as we observed it in the very short time we were there. My reason for wanting to do that is because, as an Arab and as a Muslim, I personally thought I had a certain immunity to the propaganda that is used to characterize Gazans in particular. And being there, I experienced something completely different from what preconceived notions I had. I mean, I think that there's a certain element of the propaganda that's very insidious in that it kind of fits in nicely with common sense, that people who suffer something so terrible as the siege and the massacres earlier this year, that the society's going to be characterized by a certain hostility and anger. And to see that just is simply not the case. It's not the case within the society, and I would say also the resistance to the occupation was something that was eye-opening to me. So I want to talk about that, and I want to start first, instead of going right into the resistance, as what is it that Gazans are resisting? And I think Felice did a pretty good job of summing that up. Gazans are basically, every single mode of sustenance in Gaza is under attack. The normal border crossings that would allow for the exchange of food and humanitarian aid, or just commerce, is under attack. The siege just limits what can come in and go out to such a degree that it's essentially not a border anymore. The tunnels are themselves a countermeasure against the siege, and as Felice described, they're being bombed randomly. We actually felt and heard bombs being dropped as we were leaving on the tunnels. The agriculture you see here, you saw through the video. This is a relatively daily occurrence. There's not video cameras there every day, but this is something that's happening all the time. And also the fishermen. So even through agriculture and fishing, where Palestinians, Gazans in particular, might be able to exercise some level of self-sustaining, action, that those are denied them. And with the agriculture, it's estimated to be a full 25% of Palestinian agricultural land is subject to this kind of de facto occupation. So the nature of the oppression is essentially an attack on the very survival of the people of Gaza. And in response, really, what I saw is that survival itself is the primary mode of resistance. It's not just an individual survival, every person for him or herself. It's a societal survival. Everybody's plugged into it. Even the youngest Gazans are really plugged into it. So this particular photograph was taken at the Life Makers Center, which is a day school that we visited on our first day in Gaza, and that's kind of where this idea gelled for me. At some point, we kind of went around the room and asked the children to what they wanted to be when they grew up. Very typical adult question to children. And without fail, every single child, I think there were about 25, gave one of maybe 4 or 5 answers. A doctor, dentist, pediatrician, freedom fighter, engineer. And so, it didn't occur to me until maybe they were 2/3 of the way through that all of these things are exactly what's needed on the ground today in Gaza. Nobody's talking about wanting to be a rock star, or a football player, singer, anything that would be, I guess, relatively frivolous. And that's both on some level noble and really tragic. It's children that should be enjoying a childhood, and it seems like they're denied that. But we saw that on every level, and the children were just the most poignant example. But just to understand that the survival thing isn't simply a knee-jerk reaction. It's something that takes a lot of effort, especially when you consider the strain imposed by the siege, the occupation, and the atrocities earlier this year. We spent some time with the Gaza Community Health Program, and you know, there they were telling us about some of the tolls that the occupation takes on the mental health of families. In particular, how it kind of propagates through the gender roles. I mean, Gaza is a place that's very conservative, and traditional male and female gender roles still exist in a very strong way. So when men are largely unemployed and aren't able to protect their children, and when children during the siege are telling their fathers, and this is, you know, quoting from the people who we spoke to, that, you know, Dad, I don't want to die, and they're not able. And, I mean, what do you do as a parent when you really can't tell your child, even in any kind of convincing, comforting way, that that's not going to happen? So men feel emasculated, and that's a trauma that's passed on through the family in, you know, through domestic violence that's seeing an uptick. And children are even, you know, internalizing this and seeing that their fathers can't defend them, and are beginning to identify more with the power on the ground, which is the IDF. And so, you know, parents are describing how they're troubled by seeing their children want to play, you know, soldier and whatnot, and wanting to be the Israeli soldiers who beat up the other kids and do all these things. So it's a tremendous struggle, this survival aspect, because it's an uphill battle against all of these things. And so I think it's important, if we can go to the next slide, to recognize that the forms of resistance that are on the ground, that are real, and we need to recognize them as resistance. This is another picture from the Life Makers Center. You can go to the next slide, please. Things like fishing and farming under fire, which Felice talked about. Also, I'm not sure if you can make out that picture. I'm just going to sit down so people can see the slide. The organic farming is, because people can't get traditional, or I should say conventional, fertilizers in through the borders, they're turning to real traditional methods of organic farming. Urban rooftop gardening is one way that people are dealing with the siege and trying to maintain or build a certain self-sufficiency and offset that loss of agricultural land, that 25%. Rainwater collection. Ever since the water treatment plant was bombed, that's really important. Drinking water is a scarce thing in deserts to begin with, and without proper treatment, people are having to innovate new ways of holding and collecting every bit of water they can. And of course, the tunnels. The tunnels are an obvious form of resistance. If you can go to the next slide, please. And so these are just beach scenes I wanted to show that, you know, all of life in Gaza is not struggling. Next slide. There's 3 of these. Next one, please. So, you know, people are not only, you know, working hard to establish self-sufficiency, but they're also trying to enjoy their lives, and I would say successfully. Gaza is actually a beautiful place if the bombing would stop and we would just let them be. And that's actually all that anybody asked of us, to go back and just don't send food or don't send money, just not that they don't want it, but, you know, what they really want is for us to stop sending the money and the weapons that are used against them. That was the main concern. So next slide. I just wanted to end here. This is Fatin. She was one of our guides in Gaza, and also a teacher at the Life Makers Center. And I thought one thing that she said to her class that was really kind of poignant and instructive to both them and us, I think. At one point, they weren't paying attention, and to get their attention, she said to them, "You're sleeping. Wake up, because there's no freedom in sleep." And I think that that's something that, you know, we also as Americans need to wake up to what's happening and support the resistance simply by, you know, turning to what it is that we're directly paying into. That's all I have. Thank you.